Hi, Christina from Proverbs 31 Woman here. Today I wanted to talk about something that's a little bit different from what I have put on YouTube before, but is near and dear to my heart and an important topic. And that is how I reversed my diabetes. First of all, I want to just say up front, I'm not trying to sell anything. This is something that has worked for many thousands of diabetics, type 1 and type 2, and it's something that a growing amount of research, scientific research, is backing up. And it's simple. First, let me start by saying that I was diagnosed as a type 2 diabetic this last December, right before Christmas. It came as a surprise. And I think, however, looking back and knowing what I know about diabetes now, that I had probably had type 2 diabetes for years, maybe as much as, say, 7 years, and nobody checked my blood sugar. Fortunately, I changed doctors when we moved to our new homestead, and he did check my blood sugar, and that's how I was diagnosed. But let me go back even a little bit further, because about 8 years ago, I was pregnant with our second child, and at 20 weeks I had a glucose test, which is standard, and it made me very ill, and they said I had gestational diabetes, which happens only if you're pregnant, and then it supposedly goes away when you're pregnant, although it does increase your risk for type 2 diabetes later in life. So after I was diagnosed, they put me on medication, they sent me to a nutritionist, and she told me all the things that the American Diabetes says about diabetes, how to eat in order to manage it. So I didn't know anything about diabetes, really, even though we have diabetics on both sides of the family. And of course I was pregnant, so I wanted to be sure to follow those guidelines and do what was best for my baby. But I had a terrible time trying to keep my blood sugar as low as they wanted it. And I didn't know it at the time, but they actually were letting my blood sugar go quite high. But I still couldn't keep it at the numbers they wanted. So I thought to myself, well, I had been on Atkins diet, which is a low-carb diet before, so I knew that carbs essentially turn to sugar in your body. So I thought to myself, why not just cut the amount of carbs I'm eating? And lo and behold, my blood sugar drops. But then I go to the nutritionist and she says, oh no, you can't do that. You have to eat more carbs. So I listen to her and I eat more carbs and my blood sugar goes up. I remember one time in particular, she said, oh, you need to, up your carbs, go home and eat 3 cups of popcorn. It made me so ill. And so I finally just decided I am not going to listen to this advice, because I can see that when I eat fewer carbs, my blood sugar is lower. And when I eat more, like they tell me to, following the American Diabetes standards, it goes way, way up. So this is what I did. I just sort of was quiet about going lower carb. I don't remember exactly how many carbs I did per day, but I was having like 1 slice of bread, and most of my other carbs were coming mostly from dairy and from vegetables. So I have my baby and he's healthy, and the doctors scold me and they say, if you just stick with this diet, you won't get type 2 diabetes. And I said, doctors, this is basically how I have been eating. And they just looked at me like I was lying. So fast forward about 8 years, and I had switched to really a whole foods diet that was lower in carbs. So I did not eliminate, but I avoided wheat products and pasta and rice and things of that nature. I did not limit my vegetables at all, and so I ate beans, for example. And I didn't eat that much fruit, but I did eat it, and occasionally I'd have a sweet, not very often. But I just had gotten fatter and fatter and fatter. And everything I tried, I couldn't lose weight. Even low carb anymore didn't work for me. So, thank goodness I had the doctor I have. Not only did he diagnose me with diabetes, but he said, look into a keto diet. Well, I'd heard about keto, and I had thought, oh, it's just another low-carb diet. Been there, done that, you know? But because my doctor recommended it, I went ahead and I started researching it. And I found this wonderful group on Facebook called Reversing Diabetes. And they taught me most of what I at least initially knew about how to lower my blood sugar numbers naturally. So I follow this diet, and within days, my blood sugar is lower. Within a week or two, I can't remember exactly, my blood sugar is in the normal range, high normal, but normal. And I lost a bunch of weight. I think so far, the last time I weighed myself was a couple months ago, and I had lost over 25 pounds. And I didn't really, you know, at first I had some cravings, but now it's not bad. I don't have cravings, and I don't feel hungry all the time, and I feel very satisfied and more energetic, etc., etc., etc. But the main point was that my blood sugar was in the normal range. And when I had my blood taken again by my doctor, he said, according to your blood sugar, you're not diabetic. I had reversed my diabetes in a very short amount of time. I had 3 months. It probably was less than that, but it had been 3 months since I had last had a blood glucose test. So, the diet, and there are lots of different sort of variations on keto, but what I did is what's been studied a lot and what has worked for many, many, many diabetics, both type 1 and type 2, is I went low carb, high fat, moderate protein. So let's start with the low carb. Low carb means, for me and most diabetics, 20 grams total of carbs per day. And that might sound outrageous to you right now. That might seem impossible, but let me assure you that it's easy. It's really easy. So I'm cutting, again, all wheat products, bread, pasta, rice, higher carb vegetables like dry beans or winter squash. I've cut most fruits. I eat dairy as I desire, and so I have 20 grams of carbs a day or less, and often I find I'm coming in much less and I don't feel deprived at all. So then we have the high fat. This is the part that freaks a lot of people out, because we have been taught for decades that fat is bad for you, especially bad for your heart. But I would encourage you to go to my blog and see my post about how I reverse diabetes, because I have linked to all kinds of studies to show you that mounting evidence shows that fat not only isn't bad for you, it's good for you. Your whole body needs it. Your brain needs it. Your heart needs it. And you feel better eating it. So the thing is, though, we're eating healthy fats. We're not eating these highly processed fats like vegetable oils and margarines. I know, everything you were told a few decades ago that was good for you. No, it doesn't work. It's not natural. It's not what your body needs. So my fats come in the form of butter, olive oil, coconut oil, fatty foods, like instead of eating a chicken breast, I will often eat a chicken thigh because it's fattier. You can use bacon drippings. I know, it's a lousy diet. Awful food. And if you want, you can also use lower carb dairy, such as cheese, heavy cream, sour cream, cream cheese. Ricotta is another one. And this makes up about 70% of my diet, which sounds outrageous to most people. But when you're on a keto diet, what you're doing is showing your body that instead of burning carbs, which your body, by the way, can produce all the carbs that it needs to function. You don't have to eat them. No evidence that you have to eat them at all. So you're teaching your body to burn fat. That's why you need a higher percentage of fat, and that's, of course, why you lose weight as well. So low carb, high fat, and then moderate protein. So this is not a high protein diet like, say, Atkins. Most people think of Atkins as being high protein. So the reason for that is especially for diabetics, too much protein can translate into raising your blood sugar levels. So when I'm eating meat, I am eating something that's about the size of my palm or a deck of cards. And that's it. It's that simple. And because you're eating fat, your food tastes fantastic. Any good chef will tell you fat adds flavor, and that's so true. For example, my family never really enjoyed chicken. But now that I'm cooking keto foods, high-fat foods, they love it because we're adding flavor to that bland chicken breast, for example. And not only is the fat, you know, you're burning it for energy and it makes food taste good, but it keeps you full and satisfied. If you're doing this diet and you're hungry, then you're probably not eating enough fat. Either that or you're just starting out and your body hasn't adjusted yet. So that in turn means that I often skip a meal because I'm just not hungry. And that's okay too, because we call that intermittent fasting, and there is studies now showing that that's probably a good thing also. So it's a pretty simple diet. Eating, oh, and I forgot to mention vegetables. We are eating only low carb vegetables. So that's a lot of leafy greens, cabbage, Brussels sprouts, asparagus, eggplant. I can eat, you know, pay attention to the quantity of onions I'm eating. I can eat those, or bell peppers. There's a ton of vegetables you can eat, green beans. And in addition to that, I can have some fruit. Now, if you're diabetic, it's a good idea to just cut all fruit at first, and then add it as your blood sugar has dropped. But I can eat tomatoes, and I choose to eat cherry tomatoes because they're easy to carb count. I can have 4 or 5 at a time, usually in a day, no more than that, and be just fine. I can eat the same amount of strawberries or raspberries. I haven't tried blackberries yet, but blackberries and blueberries probably I'll be able to do as well. Again, small quantities, and they taste so much sweeter and better than they did before I did keto because, you know, my taste buds taste differently now. I'm not used to sweet things. And you can have some desserts. It's a good idea if you have a really bad sweet tooth. That was never really my issue, but if you do, to just cut all of them at first. You want to train your body not to be addicted to those sweets. So you can use any artificial sweeteners. I choose not to do that because I don't believe they're healthy at all. And so I use stevia-based products. And if you hate stevia, then I would just say, just keep trying different brands until you find one that tastes better to you. So when I have a craving for chocolate, I can still have it. I do not feel deprived. But the most important thing is I know I'm not poisoning my body anymore. All those carbohydrates that I thought were good for me, like whole grains or black beans or even the higher carb vegetables that I thought were good for me, or fruit. Everybody says, oh, but fruit, you gotta have fruit. Not really. If you think about the way people ate a long time ago, fruit was a seasonal thing and it was eaten like a dessert for a good reason. It's packed full of sugar. So the mindset, it quickly changes when you're on this diet. You don't feel deprived, you feel satisfied and full. Most important, you're not poisoning your body. You're lowering your blood sugar. So many people have been able to completely go off their diabetes medications, their insulin, and others who maybe were diabetics for a longer period of time before they tried this diet are reducing their reliance upon diabetes medication. So a lot of doctors are still going to say, oh, don't do that, you need carbs. Ask them why. Why do I need to eat all those carbs? The ADA recommends eating more carbs than a lot of people I know who aren't diabetic eat in a day. It doesn't make sense to me, and I'll leave you to speculate on why that is, but I again encourage you to go to my blog and read my post about how I reversed my diabetes. I'll include the link in the description. And you can read a bunch of scientific papers about it. You can read what some of the more forward-thinking doctors are saying about it, and you can judge for yourself. But I had to share this with you because it's changed my life. I went from being a very sick person and with a pretty bleak medical future ahead of me, painful and awful. I mean, if you realize diabetes can lead to loss of limbs, going blind, heart disease, and on and on and on it goes. And so by staying with this diet, making it my lifetime diet, my lifestyle, I can be healthy. It's kind of miraculous, and I encourage you to look into it. Thank you.